Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Anywhere you're connecting with us from around the world, you are welcome to the Q podcasts, the customer experience conversations. Here we talk about all things customer experience from both perspectives, from the perspective of the customers and the perspective of the business and the business operators, to see how we can bring the conversation together while we bridge it on here on the Q podcast. Today we'll be looking at a crucial topic that affects personal and professional growth: the power of feedback. Now, feedback is more than just a response. It's a tool for improvement, innovation, and connection. Whether it's a business owner, a team leader, or an individual looking to grow, understanding the power of feedback can grossly and enormously transform your approach to development and to success. And you will be surprised how much feedback can help us grow in our personal relationships and in our professional ones as well. So today we will be looking at types of feedback. Why should we give feedback in the first place? We'll be looking at how to give feedback as well as how we receive feedback, because these are critical components that we need to look at and understand while we're talking about the subject of feedback. All right, so without further ado, we'll look at why feedback matters. Why does feedback matter? Why is it important? Do we have to get it done? Do we have to give feedback? Do we have to receive feedback? Is it important in our professional lives, in our personal lives? Why does feedback matter? Very quickly, we'll take a look at a few reasons why feedback is very, very important to us. Why must we consider feedback? Why must we give it? Why must we be open to receive it? And very quickly, we'll dive right into it. Number one, feedback enhances performance, because constructive feedback helps individuals and teams understand their strengths and areas for improvement. It provides clear guidance on what is working well and what needs adjustment, what needs improvement, leading to enhanced performance and productivity in whatever we do, in whatever sphere, whatever area of our lives that we find ourselves giving feedback or receiving feedback. So, because it is important for us to understand the fact that we need some external information, some external evaluation for us to know how we are faring in whatever it is that we're engaging in. Because I think it is quite filled with hubris when we're engaged in anything or any activity, whether it's personal or it's professional, and we are the ones also evaluating ourselves. I think that, for me, is quite very unreasonable, and we must be open to some external information that we must receive to ensure that we are on track, to know what we need to improve upon, to know what we're doing well, to know what we're not doing well at all, to know what we need to do to ensure that our performance, our productivity is the best we can give in whatever scenario, in whatever sphere that we find ourselves. Number two, why feedback? Feedback drives innovation, because feedback can spark new ideas and innovative solutions in whatever it is that we find ourselves, especially in our professional lives. Because by listening to diverse perspectives, you can identify opportunities for improvement and develop creative ideas, creative approaches to whatever challenges it is that you're facing. Because you will be surprised that you may get stuck while working on a project, while working within a team, or whatever it is that you're doing, and all you need is just that feedback from someone, or from individuals, or from a particular team, either from a superior, from a peer, from a subordinate, from somebody who is totally impartial to whatever it is that you're trying to get done. You'd be surprised that the feedback you get from these individuals could help you think more creatively, could help you ask better questions that will help you to deliver better answers and more innovative solutions to whatever it is that you're working on. So yes, feedback also drives innovation. Another reason why we consider feedback is it helps to build stronger relationships, because open and honest feedback fosters trust and transparency, and it shows that you value others and you value the opinions of others, and you're committed to mutual growth between one another, both the persons giving the feedback and the persons receiving the feedback in the same kind, and it helps to strengthen that relationship, whatever type of relationship it is that they find themselves, or that we find ourselves, both personally and both professionally. Yes, feedback does have that kind of capacity, that kind of strength to help us build stronger relationships, to help us foster stronger bonds, because there's transparency in the mix. When there is honest and open conversation about certain things that need to be done well, that need to be done better, or that need to be done at all, you will find that in that kind of relationship, there are stronger bonds built, and there is more productivity within said system. All right, so the next point we'll be looking at why we must consider feedback, and why feedback is very important to us, is it encourages continuous learning. Because feedback promotes a culture of continuous learning and development, and it encourages individuals to seek out knowledge, skills, and experiences, leading to ongoing personal and professional growth. Because when you get feedback from people on what you're doing professionally, for example, then you find that you may be lacking in some knowledge or some skill that is required for you to be optimally productive at whatever it is you're doing. And you may not know that unless you receive some form of feedback from folks that are within your space, that are engaging with you, or that experience you, or that experience your business. So yes, feedback encourages continuous learning in whatever sphere that we find ourselves. All right, so very quickly we'll look at the types of feedback. And personally, I believe that feedback is neutral. There's no good or bad feedback. However, I believe that we need to be able to distinguish between various types of it, because of how people give it and how people receive it as well. So it can help us crystallize whatever information we're getting or that we are giving in terms of feedback. Okay, so the very first one we'll look at is positive feedback. And positive feedback reinforces good behavior and performance. It acknowledges and celebrates achievements, boosting morale and giving motivation to the person or persons involved in said activity. And that is the power of positive feedback, because feedback is telling someone, well done. Feedback is telling someone that you did that particular activity very well. Feedback is saying that this particular engagement with your business was very solid. I think you should keep it up. And these are things that encourage people to do more. These are things that encourage people to learn more, to see how they can be better at whatever it is they have gotten the positive feedback on. So that is one type of feedback, but the positive feedback. The second type of feedback is constructive feedback. And constructive feedback basically focuses on areas for improvement. While positive feedback focuses on encouraging good behavior or good deeds or something you have done well, constructive feedback focuses on areas of improvement. So the reason you're given that is to ensure that the recipient knows that they need to do a couple of things a lot better than how they're doing it right now. So that is constructive feedback, and because it is specific and it is also actionable, and it must also be delivered with the intent to help the recipients grow and develop. Because what we see in terms of feedback sometimes, or what people give as feedback sometimes, isn't really feedback. It's really just trying to tear someone down, because once it lacks the elements of it being very specific, it being actionable, and it coming from a place where you're looking to have the recipients grow and be better at what they're doing. Once it's lacking in these components, then it isn't constructive feedback. Then it's just destructive feedback, and we don't need that for any reason whatsoever, either in our personal lives or in our professional lives. Okay, so of course that takes us to the next one, which is negative feedback. And this basically highlights what's not working well. This isn't working well. This is what we're looking at. This is what we're highlighting. So while it can be challenging to receive, it is important for identifying and addressing issues that may be hindering progress. So as much as we say that we may not want any negative feedback, it should also be welcome within the system, because we can't always have positive feedback even when we get things right. We can't always have constructive feedback when certain things aren't going well. We must also be able to receive negative feedback. However, when we are giving negative feedback, we must find a way to balance it out. Everything must be balanced out. Okay? Whatever feedback we're giving, either it's positive, either it's constructive, either it is negative, we must see how we balance it all out to ensure that the message is received properly, and it is aimed at growth, it is aimed at improvement, it is aimed at helping the recipient move from where they are at the point of engagement with them, where you're giving them the feedback, to where they can be in a better place, where they are more productive, where they are more engaging, either personally or professionally. All right? So we will be looking at how to give feedback, and this is very important because it will just be a few points that we'll look at as a guideline with regards to how we need to give feedback. Because a lot of people believe that once you give a response or once you say something, you have given feedback. No. Feedback must have these components for it to be considered feedback in any shape or form whatsoever. All right? So, first thing we must know is that feedback does require thoughtfulness, and it does require skill. You must be thoughtful with it if you are giving feedback, especially for the purpose of growth and for the purpose of improvement. It must be a thoughtful thing that you do. You can't just say you're giving feedback for the sake of it. It must be thoughtful, and it is indeed a skill. So the very first component we'll be looking at as to how we can give feedback is we must be specific with it. You have to be specific with whatever it is you're giving feedback on. You must be specific, because you must be able to provide clear and specific examples to illustrate your points. You can't just be vague and say that, you know, this is what you did wrong, everything is wrong, I engaged your business, your service is rubbish, your product is rubbish. No, you must be able to be specific, to say that, you know what, I experienced your business, this particular product gave me this particular difficulty operating it or making use of it. I engaged your business, this particular service that I engaged you for, this and this fell through, this and this wasn't communicated well. You must be specific. Once your communication lacks the element of it being specific, it ceases to be called feedback of any kind whatsoever. So it must be specific. It must be specific. We must avoid vague statements that focus on concrete behaviors or outcomes. We must be specific. You can't just be vague about what it is that you're communicating, or else the person you're communicating to, the recipient, doesn't know what to do better. They don't know what to improve upon. They don't even have an idea what you're talking about. So we must be specific when we say that we are giving feedback. All right. The next thing to consider is it must be timely. The feedback we give, it must be timely, because it is important that we give the feedback as soon as possible after the event that necessitates the feedback to be given. It's very important. We must not allow too much time to pass before we give the feedback that we ought to give. So we must be timely with it. You can't give a feedback to an organization or to a brand 6 months after you've experienced them. A lot of things would have happened. A lot of people would have experienced them within the time you did to the 6 months that you're giving the feedback. And they would have lost that amount of time to have been able to do more, to be better productive, to deliver better customer experience to people, and also robbing customers of having a better experience with them. So we must be timely when we are delivering feedback, either professionally or to brands or personally. We must be timely. It mustn't be too far off from the event that makes the feedback important. we must make sure that it is timely, because timely feedback is more relevant and it is easier to act upon because the information is fresh in the minds of the recipient and the person giving the feedback. So it is easier to address there and then, as opposed to having a lot of water going under the bridge. All right. So the next point we will be looking at is it must be balanced. And I believe I alluded to that earlier. It must be balanced. You balance positive and constructive feedback. You must balance it. You must balance it. Acknowledging strengths and achievements while also addressing areas of improvement. So you can say, oh, fantastic report that you put together, a fantastic product that you sold to me. However, do you believe that if it was positioned in this particular direction, it will deliver a lot more effectively or efficiently? Wonderful service that I got from you, or that we got from you. We enjoyed how we engaged your brand. How about you consider doing XYZ to ensure that you cut down your turnover time with your customers? Okay, so that's how to have balanced feedback, and that's how to give balanced feedback. That's how to give balanced feedback. And another thing we must also look at is we must be empathetic. We must be empathetic. And empathy is something that we will be looking at in the coming weeks with regards to the customer experience conversation. We must be empathetic. Empathy has a place in customer experience, both from the side of the customer, the clients, the consumers, and the side of the brands and the business operators. Empathy has a place. It has a very strong and prominent place in customer experience conversations. And as you can see here, in terms of giving feedback, we must be empathetic. We must be empathetic because when we're approaching feedback with empathy and understanding, we consider the recipient's perspective, how they will receive it, so it informs how we deliver it as well. Because like I said earlier, if the objective is for growth and improvement, we will be excuse me, we will be concerned, or we will be interested in how the recipient receives it, so that it can be crystallized in their minds as productive information that they can act upon. So we must be empathetic. We must be empathetic to them, understanding the fact that how they receive the feedback, it must be or how we deliver it, it must be in a supportive and a respectful manner. You can't claim you're delivering feedback to someone and then you're being very rude at it, or being very rude while you're getting that done. It will not be received at all, or it will be received negatively and the message will be lost. So then it loses the objective of doing so in the first place. So we must be empathetic. And the last thing we'll be looking at in terms of how to give feedback is, like we said before, be actionable. Be actionable. You must be able to provide actionable suggestions for improvement. You must be able to say, this is an example of what you can do. This is what you should be able to do to improve on this product. This is what you should be able to do to improve on this service. This is how I experienced your business. I do not believe that it is the best you can do. You should look into doing XYZ to ensure that people experience your business better. So it must be actionable. You must be able to offer practical steps that the recipients can take to address the feedback and make positive changes so that they can grow and they can improve. And I will keep emphasizing that the objective of feedback is for growth and for improvement. It isn't for tearing someone down, it isn't for tearing an organization down. It is for growth and improvement. Because there is a possibility that you will be experiencing the same individual again or the same organization again. And it is expected that when feedback is received, it is acted upon, and there is improvement in the system, and there is growth in the system. And once that happens, and you as a customer or a client, you engage them again, it's expected that you notice said growth if it has happened within that organization, within that space. Okay? So very quickly, we'll look at how to receive feedback. How do we receive feedback? We've looked at how to give feedback. We should look at how to receive feedback as well. And the one thing that we need to look at in terms of receiving feedback, which is where a lot of people have a lot of challenges, because a lot of people are very good at giving feedback, or they may believe they're giving feedback. But how do we receive feedback? How do we receive it? How do we go about receiving feedback? Number one, we must be open-minded. Okay, we must be open-minded when we approach feedback, or when we're giving feedback. We must be open-minded, and we must have a willingness to learn. That's the important thing about being open-minded when it comes to receiving feedback. We must be open-minded to learn, because when we are receiving feedback, we must have the idea, we must have the perspective that we must learn something at the end of that feedback engagement. It is important that we approach from that perspective. Now, how the person giving the feedback delivers it, we shouldn't focus too much on that and just take out the meat of it all, because we will not have all the time people who know how to deliver sound feedback. Now, should that stop us from growing? Should that stop us from improving? No, it should not. So we must be open-minded and be open to learning. And it is when we're open to learning that we can receive feedback and act on it as we should. Because when we're open to learning and we're open-minded, we're able to avoid being defensive. Because once we're defensive, then we shut down. We shut down. And once we shut down, whatever is being told to us, whatever is being said, we do not listen to it. So we miss out on the opportunity to receive the information that we need to improve and grow. So we must be open-minded. We cannot be defensive when we're receiving feedback. We must also listen actively, because a lot of people are very, very quick to interrupt when you're giving feedback, which also comes from a place of being defensive. Yes, you may have good reasons why you may have designed your product that way, or why you delivered your service in a particular way. Listen carefully. Let the person giving the feedback give their feedback. Listen carefully, and then you can respond. Okay? Listen carefully to the feedback that you're being given. Because it's when you listen carefully that you can pay attention to the details that you're being given on what to do better or what not to do at all, and what to improve upon. So that's the only time you can get that done. And if you miss that particular opportunity, then you have wasted that particular engagement. It's been a waste of time. If you miss out on those salient details that you need to grow and to improve upon, then you've wasted everybody's time. So you must be able to listen attentively. And once you've been able to listen attentively, you should be able to reflect and act. That's the next point to consider. So it's not enough that you're open-minded, you're open to learning, or you listen attentively or you listen carefully. You must be able to reflect on the information you've been given and act on it. Feedback is a waste of time when it is not acted upon. It must be acted upon at all times. It must be acted upon. Feedback isn't just a conversation to be had and you have it on record that yes, we had the conversation. The whole purpose of feedback is for you to reflect on it, crystallize the information, and you act on it for improvement. That is the whole idea behind improvement, where we have the conversation around feedback. So you must reflect on it, and you must act on it once it is given. So that is how to receive feedback. And the last thing we will look at in terms of how to receive feedback is you express gratitude. Express gratitude, because if you've been open-minded during the course of receiving the feedback, if you've been able to listen attentively, if you've been able to reflect on it even while you were receiving the feedback, while you were waiting to act on it, if you couldn't do that immediately in real time while the person is giving you the feedback and you're waiting to act on it at a later time, you should see it from a place of gratitude, because then you have been given an opportunity to grow. You've been given an opportunity to be better. You've been given an opportunity to be more productive in whatever it is that you're doing. So, express gratitude. Express gratitude to the person giving you the feedback or to the person that gave you the feedback. Just acknowledge them and thank them for the feedback and the opportunity to allow you grow, the opportunity to let you be better, and the opportunity to serve them better. All right. So those are the few points that we'll be looking at today in terms of how to receive feedback. And earlier we talked about how to give feedback as well, and why we need feedback in whatever systems that we find ourselves, either personally or with brands or with customers. Why feedback is very, very important. Okay? So up next, subscriber stories. Stay tuned. All right, you're welcome to the Q Podcast, Subscriber Stories. This is where we share stories between brands and their customers. Very interesting ones that we typically have. And please send us an email or comments down below while you can share your stories with us. Let us have your comments, let us have your stories, let us have your stories in our email, in our inbox. The email address is below, the qpodcasts@gmail.com. The qpodcasts@gmail.com. It's at the bottom of the screen. You can take a look at it. Share your stories with us so that we can have them on here for folks to learn from. Either you're a business operator, either you're a customer, you've engaged a business, it went well, it didn't go well. Share your stories with us. There is always something to learn from your stories. Okay, so today we'll be looking at two stories, very, very short ones, very, very short ones, and they're quite interesting, though they're very short. Now, this is a conversation between an employee and their boss, and the employee had earlier engaged a customer, and the boss had gotten some feedback from the customer. Now the boss is having a conversation with their employee via text message, and the boss asks, "Did you call a customer dumb tonight?" And the employee responds, "No. I said, are you dumb? I was asking him." Now that's a hilarious one, albeit very, very rude. That's not even a way to speak to a customer under any circumstance. Okay, under any circumstance, don't speak to a customer that way. Don't ask, "Are you dumb? Are you silly?" and all of that. You don't speak to a customer like that. Okay, you don't do that under any circumstance. And feeds back to what we're talking about today, the power of feedback. The only way the boss could have known that is if the boss received the feedback from the engagement of the customer with her business or with their business. That's the only way the boss will have known. If the boss didn't receive that feedback, the boss would not have known that particular incident happened. Now the boss knows that there's a reason to improve on either training the person that said that to a customer, either you fire them or whatever action you need to take to ensure that no other customer experiences your business in that particular manner again. All right. So the second one we're looking at is between a customer and a client. This is an Instagram DM. Now the business owner says, would you like to place an order? And the customer responds, yes please. The business owner responds with location, and the customer says Akonwojo, Lagos. The business owner gives the price, says total 11,000 and says please pay to the account details below. We have to block that out. Kindly send proof of payment so I can confirm immediately. Thank you. And the customer then asks, when does it come please? Just to understand when they'll be getting their order delivered. And the business owner responds, read the sales rules on the page. That was quite unacceptable, because it wouldn't have cost you anything to have communicated the sales rules to the customer while you're having the conversation in real time. It's something you could have gone to copy and paste, or you could have just typed out there yourself if it was very short information. If it was a lengthy one, you could have gone on there. It would take a minute to copy and paste to let the customer know. You don't say, okay, go read that. You're having a real-time conversation with the customer. The least you can do is at least give them the information they need in the most polite manner possible. Right, so we're winding down, and a quick recap with regards to what we've talked about today: the power of feedback. We've looked at the definition of feedback, why feedback is important for us in our personal lives, in our professional lives, the types of feedback, how to give feedback, and most importantly, how to receive feedback. So, as we close out today, it's important to note that feedback is a powerful tool that can drive growth, innovation, and help build stronger relationships, either personally or professionally, between colleagues, between brands and customers, between people in their personal lives. By understanding the importance of feedback, we learn how to give and receive effectively, because when we know that this is the power feedback holds in terms of the relationships that we have around us, then we will be more careful with how we give it, and we will do the needful with how we receive it and when we receive it. And we must make sure that feedback, with all things, is done effectively. It is given effectively and it is received effectively, because that's the only way you can unlock new opportunities for personal and professional development in our lives, in our businesses, in our brands as well. So please subscribe, like, share. That the Q Podcasts, the Customer Experience Conversations, is here with us. It's come to stay. This is where we share important information about the customer experience, looking at the conversation from both sides of the aisle, from the perspective of the customer and the perspective of the brands and the business operators within them. Also follow us on social media. The links are down below. Send us an email at theqpodcasts@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from you and to experience this great podcast together. We look forward to hearing from you and to share your stories and to share your experiences on here, so that we can all have a wider base of knowledge. Thank you for tuning in to the Q Podcast today, the Customer Experience Conversations. And remember, feedback is not just a response. It's a pathway to growth and to excellence. Thank you for tuning in today. I remain your host, Dipo Oyewale. Bye for now.